Hey everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I'm playing in the one and only, it's an absolute classic in World of Tanks, the original Tier 10 German heavy tank and the heaviest tank in the game. You can see I salute the gun. That wasn't intended for this intro, but pretty much that's exactly what the MAUS demands. Respect. It demands respect. When you are the heaviest, biggest tank inside the game, you can throw your weight around. And in today's video, I'm not going to be showing you a game, or games necessarily, where the MAUS is absolutely 10 out of 10 incredible, and it manages to do 10,000 damage, and we kill 15 players of the enemy team. Alright, now that I've managed to dissuade half of my YouTube audience from actually watching my video at the start of it, what am I actually going to show today? What I'm going to be focusing on is the fact as to why the MAUS is just still absolutely wonderful inside the game. That's because it's simply able to do things that no other tanks are able to do. Alright, so I'm playing on LIVESTREAMS, and I'm whizzing my way. Well, whizzing my way might be a bit of a bold statement here when your tank is limited to 20 kilometers an hour, but I'm making my way towards a town, because I was thinking town is a great place for a heavy tank, right? Especially a heavy tank like the MAUS. You get on a corner, you side scrape, you whittle down your opponents with your 2,200 damage per minute, and you use your 3,000 hit points to be able to keep yourself alive for long enough to be able to shut them down. And then I realize, slowly, it dawns on me right there, and I stop pressing the W key and I realize, yeah, I probably actually want to press the S key. I haven't quite managed to make it into the town yet. Do you know what? That's actually probably quite a good thing that I haven't managed to make it into the town, because this tank can go backwards at 3/4 as fast as it can forwards. So there's no point in turning this tank around. If I can go backwards at 15, it would take me longer to turn the tank around and then to drive back where I came from than probably it would do if I just slam the reverse key on. And so, all of my team are going around the southeast, and this is where the MAUS... Oh, come on, Mr. Super Conqueror! That was an outrageous shot on the move, but a good one at that. Where did that one enter my vehicle? Who knows? It was a gold round, so it could have entered... Oh my lord, look, it bounced down off my mantlet and went into the top hull of the tank. That's incredibly lucky, the ricochet there. That's a lot like the ricochet that took out Tiger 131, where it actually bounced down off the gun barrel and went into the turret ring of the vehicle, shocking all of the crew that now they can no longer manage to traverse the turret and they abandon the tank. And then it was captured in North Africa, right? But I digress. I'm focusing on another super heavy German tank that is not the Tiger, it's the MAUS. Good shot there by the Super Conqueror, although incredibly lucky for him to be able to do that. Now he's going to be slamming rounds at me, and he's not going to be firing gold anymore. He's going to be firing regular rounds. I guess he's completely underestimating the power of the MAUS's armor. So I realized that I'm never going to be able to penetrate a Super Conqueror with armor-piercing rounds, and so instead I'm going to be firing high-explosive rounds. And right now, it's just about trying to get back into cover while also wielding the storm from my opponents. What other heavy tank could be doing this? Just look at the huge line of enemy vehicles that are against me right now. We have Standard B, we have light tanks, we have a whole glut of enemy vehicles right in front of me, including a Type 5 Heavy, an FV215B183, the Super Conqueror, and the 257. And yet, apart from the premium gold Hesh round that hit our vehicle that did 689, and the unlucky round that bounced down and went into the top of the tank off the gun mantlet, we've managed to get back. We've still got half our hit points intact. And as you can see, right here, we have blocked 4,500 damage from the enemy team. And that is just where the MAUS is completely incredible. We are holding back the enemy team. We are lighting them up for our team. We fired a few high explosive rounds, you know, on the move, just to be able to take a few hit points away from the Super Conqueror. And now we've managed to get into a dip where we can hopefully hide our vehicle and be able to engage them. Wow, that Super Conqueror is seriously getting lucky right now. Manages to hit me right on the beak of my side-angled turret there. And that's what you've got to do when you've got big, thick plates like this that are very flat. You've got to angle them. You've got to be defensive in the MAUS. And that's why I think the MAUS is possibly one of the most rewarding heavy tanks you could ever possibly play. Because this tank, I'm thinking, what tank do I want to shoot now? Well, why not shoot the one that fires the 183mm Hesh rounds? That sounds like a good idea, right? That's why the MAUS is one of the most rewarding tanks to play if you're an experienced player inside the game, or even if you just perfect the MAUS. I would argue that the MAUS actually has one of the highest skill caps of any tank at tier 10 with regards to how you can use the armor, because most other tanks, it's simply a case of try and hide your lower plate, expose your turret, and wiggle your weak points. With the MAUS, it's kind of like all about thinking, which direction do I face my armor? Where is the incoming fire going to be from? And how can I make when you're basically facing your gun at your opponents, that's when you're weak, and so it's about trying to either get them to bounce or work within their reloads, or just simply hold them in place for long enough, and that's what we're doing here. We've given our team, for which we invested most of our forces, enough time to be able to push around the southeast of this map. Now they're going in, now they're killing the artillery, then they're going to flank around, and then they're going to get all these heavy tanks and these tank destroyers in the back. And we've given our team enough time as well to fall back and to be able to advance up here to be able to harass the Super Conqueror and the 257. And it's just, the MAUS is just brilliant. This is why there are actually quite a few controversial comments about the MAUS with my tier list that I released on this channel the other day. I'm not just making an entire video to justify why I would put the tank inside that position. It's more of a case of, I really think that this tank is underrated. Sure, it wasn't underrated while it was absolutely buffed to all hell, and it had, I think it was 3,200 hit points, it had incredible damage per minute, and it had even better gun dispersion values than it does now. But still, this tank is an absolute monster, and while it can be fairly friendly for a new player to play because the armor is thick and inside a good matchup you're going to be truly dominant, it's really when you get into the bad matchups that it really allows an experienced player to do some tremendously fantastic things with the MAUS. And one thing I tried to demonstrate during my tech tree showcase of this tank was about the zone control that you can create with the MAUS. It's just the immovable object, and it doesn't look like the enemy force was unstoppable in this case. By holding this position, we allowed our team to flank around, and I did check all of the statistics of everybody in the post-game, and this wasn't a case of the teams being unbalanced. This was frankly the MAUS being the absolute German behemoth that it wants to be, to hold back an enemy advance and just create an absolute graveyard here by allowing our team to flank around. Anyway, the Jagdtiger gets shut down at the end of the game, but you know what? This is about a double helping of MAUS gameplay today. So round 2 on mines, and the matchup is pretty much slamming for the MAUS. We're against tier 9 and tier 8 tanks, and there's only one self-propelled gun. Now with the MAUS on a map like this, there's a few different positions which you could manage to make your way into. Either you could try and control the center of the map and try and punish your enemies from making their way up on top of the hill. Alternatively, you could try and do the classic push, which is along the east of the central mass of mines here, and then fight it out around this corner without hopefully exposing yourself to all the tank destroyers that like to sit up here. Alternatively, I've seen a lot of people using the bush over here, although I feel like that's probably going to be for tanks that have maybe 10 degrees of gun depression or more, or at least to have the mobility to be able to pull back quickly and not expose big chunks of their lower plate. Today, I wanted to do something different with the MAUS, and I wanted to showcase on the stream this idea of kind of just zone control, and the fact that if you've got a vehicle that can literally just sit out in front of your opponents and you can manage to lock them in place, you can avoid them from shooting your allies, and more importantly you can light them up for your team, that the MAUS is just an absolute powerhouse. It's an absolute powerhouse of a tank. So we're going to just light up the enemy here. I know these are all tier 8 tanks. It's beside the point. If you were in a different kind of vehicle, you might be able to do this, but possibly the shells going onto the upper hull of the tank might be able to penetrate it, or those gold rounds from the Skoda T27 would be able to go through the side. The MAUS, with its 200mm of frontal hull armor, 185mm of side armor, and great space protection all above the tracks, and also that 260mm of frontal turret and 210 side turret, just allows you to sit out in positions that other tanks could only dream of. And so I thought about trying out a different kind of position on mines here. Alright, so now let me talk about something that's very important to realize about the MAUS, and that is that you always need to be thinking about angling your armor towards where you think the next threat is going to be. So immediately, as I come around this corner, I realize, okay, where are their tank destroyers going to be? They're going to be sitting up here. So if I don't angle my armor towards the tanks that are sitting up here, I'm going to be in an absolute world of trouble. So instead of kind of driving out sideways, we're just going to reverse. Why not use the 15 kilometers an hour that the MAUS has to be able to reverse out in the open? The armor is still good enough to be able to hold our own from our opponents. And by driving in this kind of like zigzag fashion that you see here, where you advance one way, and then you pull back, and then you advance one way, and then you pull back, you can actually manage to cross gaps that would be choke points. But by using your armor out in the open, you can really do it in very funky ways. By doing this in the MAUS and just really focusing on on how you should be able to use your armor effectively. And the reason why I turn my armor to the side here is that obviously I want to try and progress, but also, importantly, where's the threat going to be to the mouse? The threat is going to be anyone behind, or the threat is going to be anyone who gets the side here, or anybody who gets the side here. But of course, there are no opponents over there, there are no opponents over there, and there are no opponents over on the other side, and so you've always got to be thinking about trying to drive the mouse at 45 degrees, and if you manage to do that, yeah, you're going to be able to do things in this tank that other tanks just simply can dream of. Alright, so 3,500 damage blocked here. We haven't lost a single hit point from the enemy team. We're bouncing premium rounds from the Ag Tiger, premium rounds for the 50 TP, premium rounds from the Renegade. So it's not as if these are all tier 8 tanks that are just firing standard ammunition at us. The Ag Tiger, for example, I believe has 252 millimeters of penetration on its premium rounds. Alright, so a bit of an awkward scenario here. I want to see if I can manage to... I was thinking, can I wedge my tank up that slope? Probably, possibly, although it could end up being a little bit awkward and I can't really slow down too much. So this game, it's not a fancy push around the east. It's more of a trying to think about how can you try to push a flank, which maybe the enemies aren't expecting, but also how can you try to avoid the big chunky tank destroyers on the enemy team, or using the mouse against the vehicles that have much less chance of being able to penetrate you. So a standard round there through the front of the Ag Tiger, and we see a standard B on our left, and we can tell that that standard B doesn't have the top gun because they have 1,550 hit points. So that's why I always recommend, hopefully you've all checked out my World of Tanks settings guide. If there's one video that you should watch for World of Tanks on YouTube, it's got to be the World of Tanks settings guide that I put out. The information that you can get by seeing both the current health and the remaining health of your opponents, or should I say, sorry, the total health and the remaining health, because current and remaining would be the same thing, right? What the health they started with and what the health that they have remaining can actually allow you to figure out what stock tanks there are on the enemy team. And then if they're stock, you can tell what gun they're going to be used, so you can use that to your advantage. Alright, you might think, well, why don't you use a med kit in the mouse? Well, surely you're going to get stunned, or surely you're going to lose a lot of your crew. Alright, so yesterday I think I played 11 games in the mouse. I think I lost 3 and I won 8. And during those games, I only lost 1 crew member. I lost my radio operator once in those 11 games. I didn't use a med kit, even in any of them. And that's because I used a super heavy spall liner on the mouse. And the super heavy spall liner protects your crew from 50% of the high explosive damage, but also importantly, with regards to your crew, it protects your crew from 50% of death, basically, or getting knocked out inside the game. And so by using a super heavy spall liner, I can afford to use both chocolate, a large repair kit, and also a fire extinguisher on this tank so I don't cook up if the FV405 shoots me. And then I would thoroughly recommend that what you use is jack of all trades on your commander. And that means that if your crew do get knocked out inside the mouse, that you can still manage to keep going, albeit at a reduced efficiency, but it's just a good trade in my opinion. Obviously it was a small sample group, 11 games that I played in the mouse, and I only lost my radio operator once, and that's with the super heavy spall liner. Be interesting to see any of you out there who tried to play without the super heavy spall liner and see how often your crew get knocked out inside the mouse. But for me, I really feel like this is one of the beautiful things about World of Tanks, is that you can think about new ways of playing vehicles, even 9-10 years after the game has been released. Coming up with new ideas, new metas, new customization. And with a tank like this, just because it's not a Soviet heavy, just because it doesn't have an autoloader, just because, fair enough, premium rounds will be getting through your cheeks if you don't angle them, and even if you do, sometimes they're going to be able to penetrate this part of the vehicle, where you can effectively bypass the mantlet and shoot a kind of square in here from the side. That doesn't mean that the mouse is not awesome within its own right, and still, after all these years, one of my favorite vehicles in the game, and I would argue still competitive within it, at least inside the random queue. I probably wouldn't want to play this thing inside ranked or inside some kind of clan wars battle, maybe outside of Himmelsdorf. So as I mentioned at the start of the video, these rounds weren't going to be ace tankers, they weren't going to be top guns, they weren't going to be fancy battles. We were going to do the dirty, nitty-gritty work that sometimes the team needs for you to be able to win the battle. We finish middle on damage. We finish middle on experience because we don't get rewarded sometimes for making, in my opinion, the game-changing play of this map. World of Tanks is notoriously unfair with who manages to get the experience. It's not the player who distracts the opponents. It's not the player who manages to even tank the opponents, at least most of the time. It's more often than not the player who's going to be doing the most damage and getting the most kills. But for every glass cannon tank like the Standard B, the tier 9 Italian auto-reloading medium tank in the game, that wants to be able to farm damage and wants to be able to pick up the kills, you gotta have a suitably heavy distraction plan, right? So on mines, we managed to get a cool-headed medal for ricocheting 10 rounds in a row, a steel wall medal as well for blocking 6,000 damage inside this battle. And this time we were rewarded with a lot more experience, I guess because we managed to secure some of those kills. On damage though, we're barely in the top 5. But once again, you shouldn't be so output-based in the MAUS. It's not about the amount of damage that you deal. It's not about the amount of kills that you manage to pick up. More often than not, it's about zone control. It's about dominating and locking down important areas of the map. And it's once you start to master this, you can go on great runs of games with your super heavy German tanks. Yesterday, I played 14 games in super heavy German tanks like the MAUS, the E100, and the Mäuschen. We lost 3 games and we won 11. And what you see is not a huge amount of damage in each of the individual battles, but more about the zone control and the consistent impact that you can have in a tier 10 German super heavy. And so, the MAUS, one of the original tier 10 heavy tanks in the game, in my opinion, still completely rocks inside World of Tanks. And while I really wouldn't recommend it as your first tier 10 vehicle, for all of you players out there who haven't decided yet to go to one, if you're looking for a place to invest those German blueprint fragments that you received from Wargaming's Holiday Ops, I thoroughly recommend you invest them in skipping the Tiger P and make your way towards this one-of-a-kind vehicle. Anyway, ladies and gents, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, give the video a thumbs up, but if you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And let me know in the comments if you completely disagree with me and you think that the MAUS is an absolute trash heap and that you wouldn't touch it with a barge pole. Or alternatively, if you are the kind of player out there who absolutely loves the MAUS, why is that the case? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic and hopefully I'll see you soon.